What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the best value in every single round of your fantasy football drafts. This is probably a video I'll, run again in like a month or so, but I thought it'd be fun at this point in the offseason, just try to find some of those top targets. I'm going to be using 4for4's ADP, pretty much just a consensus from a ton of different platforms to try to get, the best consensus ADP out there. Would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you guys agree, disagree with my picks, let me hear it. But let's just dive right into round one here. And I think for the most part, the round one ADP looks pretty solid. In my opinion, the best value is Christian McCaffrey. He's going off the board as the running back 5, the 111. In my personal rankings, I have him as my running back 4 and my 108. Now, I think he's going to be a super polarizing player. This is something I've talked about in my running back rankings videos. There are going to be people that are ecstatic to hit the draft button on CMC at the 111. There are also going to be people who pretty much are going to have no interest in drafting him. Like, he might fall to the late second, and they just do not want anything to do with Christian McCaffrey. And I get it, right? He has had some major injury concerns from 2018 through 2024. He has had 3 seasons where he has not played in 8 games. And he's had this weird injury history where certain dudes, they'll miss 3, 4, 5 games in a season. For CMC, he's like all in or he's all out. In those other seasons, those other 4 seasons, he's played in at least 16 games. So he's either like a complete league winner for you, where in all 4 of those seasons, he was top 2 in points per game, or he's not even logging like half a season, and you're pretty much, just tanking your season if you did draft him. But when you look at his production when he is healthy and on the field, no one else can match it. Like, straight up, he's had 3 full seasons where he's averaged 24 PPR points per game. And if you just like attributed the same health to him as a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Bijan Robinson, even a Saquon Barkley, like, he would be the locked-in running back 1 heading into the season. I don't think that's controversial. Like, his best season, his peak outcome is just way higher than every other running back that we are dealing with. And so then we look at his injury history here. Obviously not a doctor, but just, trying to look at some of the things I've seen. He does have an extensive injury history, but it is pretty spread out. Like, it's not like one chronic issue that like keeps messing with him. So he's had a high ankle sprain, a shoulder sprain, a thigh injury, hamstring injury, another ankle sprain, and then last year it was the Achilles tendonitis to start the season, and then a sprained PCL to end the year. From what I've read out there from the fantasy doctors, with the stem cells that he received last season plus the full offseason to recover, I'm willing to take the swing here, where I will acknowledge like he has more injury risk than a lot of these other running backs, but I just think the risk is worth the reward. If you're able to draft a healthy Christian McCaffrey in the late first round, like, you are just going to have such a leg up over your league mates. So if you're in like one league and you're not joining, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 leagues, like, I could understand maybe just being like, I don't want to tank my one season on a Christian McCaffrey pick. But if you are, going to have a lot of drafts out there, I'm going to want Christian McCaffrey on at least a couple of my rosters. Now, looking at round 2, I think the best pick is pretty clearly Brian Thomas Jr. He's going off the board as the wide receiver 8, the 204. Now, I actually also have him as the 208, but I think he's much closer to like a 1-2 turn than like a very established early to mid second round pick. He is coming off an insanely impressive rookie season, was the wide receiver 11 in points per game, caught 87 passes for almost 1,300 receiving yards, scored 10 touchdowns, and in the last 6 games of the season, averaged 22.9 PPR points per game. And during that stretch, he commanded a ton of volume, 11.7 targets per game. And so I just think you look at him, you look at his production from last year, he's just an all-around great wide receiver. He can win downfield. He was 5th in deep targets, and he was also 5th in deep receiving yards. He was 4th in yards after the catch, 5th in touchdowns. He was efficient, 8th in yards per route run, and he did all of that while playing on the 7th lowest scoring offense, the team that had the 9th fewest passing yards, and his starting quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, missed 7 games, and like that crazy stretch to end the season was with Mac Jones at quarterback. Now they get Liam Cohen, who was the offensive coordinator for the Bucs, who just led them to a top 5 offensive season where they were 3rd in passing yards, 2nd in passing touchdowns. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to come in, and I think he is going to smash this season. Now, maybe there's some concern about the Jaguars trading up, drafting Travis Hunter. I do think this offense is going to be good enough to support two very good wide receivers. And there's still some uncertainty there with Travis Hunter, right? Like, how much defense is he playing? Is going to be able to come in and just be an ultra productive wide receiver right away? Like, I'm still very in on Hunter. I'm probably higher on him than consensus, but I still think Brian Thomas Jr. is a great pick. I feel like we need to let go of like the fading very good wide receivers because they're playing with other good wide receivers. If you're in a good situation, which I do think that is the case here with Jacksonville, BTJ should have great production. Now, looking at round 3, I'm going to go with Breece Hall, and I've just continued to get higher and higher on Breece Hall. He's going off the board as the running back 14, the 311, so pretty much like a 3-4 turn pick, and he is coming off a very disappointing 2024. I'm not going to try to frame it as anything other than that, but it was disappointing relative to his ADP, where he was drafted as like a locked-in top 3 running back. It was like a debate between him and Bijan for the running back 2. He was the running back 17 at 15.1 points per game. So with Breece Hall last year, you were hoping with Aaron Rodgers coming in or him being healthy for the season, he was going to have more touchdown upside. The efficiency was going to be a lot better. And it really just didn't come through. Like, the Jets scored the 8th fewest points per game, and his efficiency actually took a dip from the previous season without Aaron Rodgers. And so even though his situation doesn't look amazing heading into 2025, I actually think you can argue that it's better than what it was last year. This Jets offense is projected for 19.6 points per game. That's not great, but last year they scored 19.9. So they're not projected to have like a significantly worse scoring offense. Breece is a very good pass catcher. He's commanded the second most targets at the running back position in the last 2 seasons. In 2023, 76 receptions for 591 yards. 2024, 57 receptions for 483. And so you might look at Justin Fields coming in, mobile quarterback, and think that he is just going to be unwilling to check down to Breece Hall, and Breece's receiving production is going to take a hit. Justin Fields actually had the highest check down rate amongst all quarterbacks in 2024. And like, you could attribute that to him playing behind a not so great offensive line, not having a ton of weapons. But the Jets O-line is solid, but like, he's not going to have weapons here with the Jets either, right? He had George Pickens at a wide receiver with the Steelers, and that was it in terms of the wideouts. Here with the Jets, he has Garrett Wilson and then pretty much nothing else. Like, this group of pass catchers is truly awful. Josh Reynolds is currently listed as a starter on the depth chart. I think the threat of Justin Fields' legs is going to help the efficiency of Breece Hall. And like I did mention, they do have a pretty decent offensive line. So I've been a believer in the player of Breece Hall. I've really kind of just come around on the situation over the last couple of months. And so personally, like, I'd be willing to take him in like that early 3rd area, like 303, 304, somewhere in that range. And so if you can get him late round 3, early round 4, I do think that is just a great pick. Now, looking at round 4, I was choosing between 2 options. It's Rashee Rice and Amarion Hampton. I think both these guys are screaming values at their current ADP. I did just slightly lean towards Rashee Rice here. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 17, the 401, and I just think you're rarely going to see this type of upside at the wide receiver position going in the 4th round. This is a dude who in his 3 healthy games last year put up stat lines of 7 for 103, 5 for 75 and a touchdown, and then 12 for 110 and a touchdown, 21.6 points per game. And it's not like that 3-game sample size just came out of nowhere. In the last 6 regular season games of 2023, he averaged 18.8 points per game on 9.5 targets per game. I think the concerns come in when you talk about his injury recovery. He's coming off a season-ending injury, a torn LCL, but all the reports we've seen about him have been positive. It's not a massive concern for me. He did have like the suspension concern leading into last season, kind of carried into this offseason, but it seems like if he does get hit with a suspension for like his driving incident, it'll be in 2026 because I think that's the way his court dates line up. And then I think the other big question here is just going to be like, does he retain the same role as last year? I think he is very usage dependent in how they manufacture his touches. He had a 4.8 and 5.2 ADOT in his 2 NFL seasons. But you just look at the upside, and it's like if they just put him right back into the same role where he was ultra productive last year, he is going to be an absolute smash pick at wide receiver 17. So I'm buying into the upside. Rashee Rice is going to be my favorite value here. Now, moving into round 5, I want to talk about Teteroa McMillan. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 28, as the 5'11". And we've just seen in recent years, these round one wide receiver picks have been some of the highest ceiling bets that you can make in fantasy football. 7 of the top 11 rookie wide receiver seasons in NFL history for fantasy have happened in the last 5 years. You've had Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas Jr., Justin Jefferson, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Waddle. I'd say Puka is the only one where like you couldn't realistically see that upside because no one can project a day 3 wide receiver to come in and deliver that type of rookie season. So you've got those rookies coming in, delivering at a high level. You also look at the recent top 10 wide receiver draft picks. This is since 2018. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, Jalen Waddle, Drake London, Rome Odunze, Garrett Wilson, Devonta Smith. So you can see their point per game as rookies, where they ranked amongst the other wide receivers. And you can see, like, it's not like every single one of these dudes comes in and is amazing, right? Marv was kind of underwhelming last year, wide receiver 39. London, wide receiver 43. Rome Odunze was pretty tough last year as the wide receiver 57. But you also can see the upside with a guy like Jamar Chase, Malik Neighbors, who are the wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 6 in points per game. And then you still have some of those like mid-level dudes. Garrett Wilson, wide receiver 30. Jalen Waddle was the wide receiver 15. Devonta Smith, like back-end wide receiver 3 as the wide receiver 36. And so you can see the upside there. The floor is still fine. And I think when we're looking at his situation here, like a lot of these dudes had much worse situations. Garrett Wilson, Drake London, like they just had no answer at the quarterback position. At least Tet stepping into like an ascending offense, a rising young quarterback. I trust Dave Canales as a play caller. Tet's a big wide receiver. He can play outside. They can put him in the slot as like a big slot option. He has great hands, super effective in contested catch situations. This Panthers offense needs a number 1 target. I think they think that can be Tetairoa McMillan. So I have him as my wide receiver 21. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 28. Just a shot I want to take here on Tet McMillan. Then in round 6, I'm going to go with Jalen Waddle. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 31, the 604, and you are getting a pretty solid discount here, coming off an awful 2024 season, career lows pretty much across the board, targets, receptions, receiving yards, touchdowns. He was the wide receiver 50 with 10 points per game, but you look at his first 3 seasons, like he was the definition of year-to-year consistency, wide receiver 15, 12, 21 in points per game. 2024 was just an all-around nightmare season. Tua was banged up. Waddle just gave you nothing in those games. Without Tua, Jalen Waddle himself was also playing through some injuries. Jonnu Smith out of nowhere became like a focal point of the offense. He is now gone. Now, I will point out that injuries have kind of been concerning in back-to-back seasons. Within the last 2 years, he has been on the injury report for a concussion, a back injury, knee injury, chest injury, ankle injury, quad injury, hamstring, and knee. So, like, the dude's just been very consistently banged up, is a point I want to make. Still willing to buy in on him here. You have an aging Tyreek Hill, 31 years old, also coming off an underwhelming season. Like I mentioned, Jonnu Smith is gone. There is kind of a runway here for Jalen Waddle to not just jump back into like that solid wide receiver 2 production, but to potentially take the leap and be the number 1 target on this team. Now, I'm not saying like he's going to come in and just completely beat out Tyreek Hill, but Tyreek Hill is being drafted in the 3rd round for a reason. There's some concern about his age, him potentially falling off as a player, and Jalen Waddle, right? Like, if you looked at it through his first 3 years, it would be like, all right, when Tyreek Hill starts to dip, that's when Jalen Waddle is going to ascend. I think that could be this season, and you're getting him at an ultra discount just because of how bad he was in 2024. Now, in round 7, we're going to go with another wide receiver here in Chris Olave, going off the board as the wide receiver 35, the 704. And I think this is a pretty clear debate between talent and then just his injury risk. In Chris Olave's 2 healthy seasons, he has been the wide receiver 25 and 19 in points per game. He's come in, he's commanded targets at a high level while also being like a downfield big play threat. The concussions have been an issue. He has had 4 so far in the NFL. I want to say he also had 1 in college. And they're not just like these average normal concussions. Like the dude is getting knocked out cold on the field, which is awful to see. And so it is a concern where like he has 1 more concussion, he might just be done. Like he might just pack it up and retire. And that obviously is a risk. The Saints offense is probably not going to be great, probably going to be a bottom tier unit, but Chris Olave is going to be the clear number 1 target. I just think he has too much talent as a player to be drafted as the wide receiver 35. And then you also just have like, maybe Tyler Shuck is a little bit better than people think. I do think sometimes people can get a little bit carried away by just like automatically locking a team in to be a really bad offense, or you could go the other way. Like if your baseline is that a team is going to be the best offense in the league, like there's only really room for you to lose out in terms of them being worse. And so I'm not making the case that like the Saints offense is going to be amazing, but it's also not a guarantee that they're just like the worst or like a bottom 2-3 offense in the NFL. And so if I can draft Chris Olave in round 7, I'm going to be doing it more often than not. Then in round 8, I think this is going to end the streak of wide receivers. I'm going with Jacoby Myers, and I didn't really think I was going to be the Jacoby Myers guy, heading into this season. But the more I look at it, compare him to some of the wide receivers that he is being drafted behind, I think I am going to have a lot of shares of Jacoby Myers. He's going off the board as the wide receiver 41, the 803. And this is a guy who has not finished worse than top 36 in points per game in each of the last 4 seasons. In his 2 years with the Raiders, he has been the wide receiver 20 and 24 in points per game, coming off a very impressive 2024 season, played in 15 games, caught 87 passes for over 1,000 yards, and only scored 4 touchdowns. So this dude in back-to-back seasons has been a top 24 wide receiver. He's been doing that with awful quarterback play like Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. Now he's getting a massive quarterback upgrade with Geno Smith coming in, and we're projecting him to be like a mid-tier wide receiver 4. I'm not seeing it. I think he's a very safe pick, and maybe he doesn't have like the crazy upside. But in my opinion, someone going from being drafted as a mid-tier wide receiver 4 to having the upside to be like a mid-tier wide receiver 2, that is a pretty solid leap and like some very realistic upside that you could be getting out of a guy being picked in like the 40s at the wide receiver position. Then looking at round 9, I'm going to go with Cam Scatabo, being drafted as the running back 33, the 902. Admittedly, I don't think there's like a screaming value in this round. I do think Scadabo's a solid pick, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, round 9, Cam Scatabo, like all in every single time. I just think he's a fun rookie running back in an ambiguous backfield. He's competing with another day 3 running back in Tyrone Tracy. I just think Scatabo has like an all-around skill set where he has the opportunity to kind of steal touches in a variety of different areas. He's a big physical running back, so he could easily slot in the short yardage situations, could work in near the goal line. Also a very solid pass catcher, though. Now, Tyrone Tracy, wide receiver, converted to running back, you would think those would be his opportunities. I will say he wasn't as like ultra impressive as a pass catcher as, you could have expected last year. Like, I think he was probably, not that he was better as a runner, but like coming into the season, you'd be like, all right, he's this third down back, probably not getting a ton of work on the ground. And he came in, had a solid season, but he didn't exactly blow anyone away as a pass catcher. And so I would lean towards Cam Scatabo being the more valuable running back in this backfield. And I think if you can just buy into, a young, fun player in round 9, a crowded backfield, it could be a really solid pick. Then in round 10, someone who I think is extremely underrated heading into the season, we have Josh Downs. He's being drafted as the wide receiver 47, a back-end wide receiver 4 going at the 1002. And this was a dude who last season, 2024, was the wide receiver 28 in points per game. He did that on an offense that was 25th in passing yards, 27th in pass attempts, and 27th in passing touchdowns. So an awful offensive environment. He also dealt with some injuries, and he was still able to log a wide receiver 28 season. He had the 6th highest target rate in the NFL. He's heading into year 3. He could naturally just take another jump as a player. And then now you also have the potential for Daniel Jones at quarterback. Now, Daniel Jones is certainly not some sort of like top tier quarterback. He is not a world beater. But in terms of supporting the pass catchers, I trust him a whole lot more than I would trust Anthony Richardson. And so Josh Downs in round 10, I just think is a steal. I think you could be getting a reliable weekly flex option pretty much for free here in like the double-digit rounds. Then in round 11, I'm going to go with Bashal Tutin, the RB41 being drafted in the middle of the 11th round. I just think he has so much upside here in round 11. He is a dynamic rookie running back. He is an elite athlete, big play threat, very capable pass catcher. We just saw the Jaguars' new head coach Liam Cohen turn day 3 Bucky Irving into like a league winner for fantasy. And so now the initial reporting out of Jaguars camp are that ETN looks to be the favorite to be the running back one to start off the season, but there's no guarantee that holds. When things kind of break down during the season, these rookies naturally are going to gain momentum in their different situations. Things can change quickly, injuries can happen. In round 11, I just think there's a lot of upside here for the potential Jaguars running back one. And if he does get the opportunities, I think he has the skill set to be a really explosive fantasy running back. And then the final round here, round 12, I'm going to go with Luther Burden, being drafted as the wide receiver 55, like middle of the 12th round. I just think buying a talented player in a crowded group of weapons is a fine thing to do at this point in the draft. It's possible he just goes out there and is buried behind DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, but there are certainly paths where he could potentially emerge as a fantasy relevant player. First off, you just have injuries like DJ Moore goes down, Rome Odunze goes down. All of a sudden, Luther Burden could have some more opportunities. You also just have the idea that like DJ Moore isn't really living up to Ben Johnson's standards. There's just been like these weird comments about his body language, some stuff he did last year, right? That Ben Johnson is, kind of harped on. DJ Moore's also just had like some odd sound bites. So it's possible that the vibes there are just off and Luther Burden could take more work right away. And it's also possible that he's just so good as a player, you can't really take him off the field. Like I think a lot of people are always worried about like this target competition stuff, and it is real. But if Luther Burden's like a stud and is going to come out and ball out in year one on like a wide open wide receiver room, he's going to find a way to earn targets on this Bears roster. So I was a fan of him as a prospect. He's very dangerous with the ball in his hands. He was also like hand selected from this new coaching staff. And in round 12, this type of talent on an offense that I think is going to take a big leap, I think he's worth a dart throw. And so that is going to wrap it up for my favorite value in every round. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Do you agree with my picks? You have some other shout outs. Would love to hear them. But thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.